Business ownership has never been hotter, but how do you do it? That's where I come in. Allow me to guide you on your journey. Welcome to Ion Franchising. This episode sponsored by SEO Samba. Empower your franchise with predictable results and AI-driven marketing. Hello and welcome to Ion Franchising. It's already mid-January. Do you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David? Larry David said that there's a cutoff for the Happy New Year greeting.
Larry, Happy New Year.
You're too late. Happy New Year. Come on, it's 3 weeks.
Isn't it almost a month already?
It's ridiculous.
There's a cutoff. After a certain time, you can no longer say it. Well, I don't necessarily believe that. You could be listening for the first time. Well, today, valuable information. I cannot wait to share this with you. It's kind of a year in review. We're going to discuss my franchise answers to some of the most frequently asked questions in 2024. Of course, some of these will be asked again in 2025. A lot of you are at a different cycle in the process with learning about franchises and deciding if it might be for you. So I have been a franchise owner of brands like Wingstop and Krispy Kreme donuts, and I created and started my own brands like Pink Box Donuts, I guess I'm most famous for in Las Vegas, creating that brand from scratch many, many years ago. So it's New Year's. What are you going to do differently? Most people reflect on the previous year and start thinking of things that they can change in their life. I'm not suggesting anything needs to change. You get to decide what changes in your life. Fitness goals are something that float to the top. Financial goals are another item that typically float to the top. Now, normally speaking, if you're at a job that you're not happy with, it might take you years to decide, I need a job that's going to give me more flexibility and the ability to make even more money than I make now. I've kind of tapped out. Or my boss sucks. I'm talking to an amazing lady in the Midwest right now, and she goes, I've been with this company 23 years. It's been great, but my boss sucks. And I know they're going to get rid of me in the next couple of years, and I'm going to beat them to the punch, and I'm going to get into a franchise. So regardless of your situation, I want to be able to help you. Why would you use me? I have all the experience in the world owning franchises. I'm friendly. I'll work 7 days a week for you. And the bottom line is I truly like helping people. The best part is my services are free and I get paid by the brands. I represent hundreds of great brands. And today, at the end, teaser alert, at the end, I'm going to give you some of my favorite brands. They might not be right for you, but they're brands I do a lot of business with because I believe in them. And we'll talk about this as we go. Let's get to my frequently asked questions of 2024. Lance, how do I know the best franchises for me? Well, step one, work with a franchise broker consultant. As I mentioned, it's free. We get paid by the brands. We are your advocate in the process. If you don't use us, you're not going to be able to zero in on the best, most successful brands. My criteria for a best brand is obviously the leadership, the immediate leadership that's running the day-to-day, but then also the ownership group. Again, we're going to talk about some of this later. There are some big groups that own multiple franchise brands, or some people want to work with the immediate owner and want to work with a singular brand like Rolling Suds or Voda Cleaning and Restoration, two excellent brands of which I know the owners directly. If I have an issue, I'm calling the owner for you. Thankfully, that doesn't happen. Besides the leadership or ownership of a brand, the other criteria I'm always looking at with a brand, item 19 information. In case you're not aware, every franchise brand produces what's called a franchise disclosure document. There are 23 items within that big, fat, boring document, but there's a lot of important information. Item number 19 towards the back is an earnings claim. Used to be called the financial representations. Most brands simply disclose sales or revenue. But isn't it nice to know in a senior home care brand, if you're going to invest $150,000, including working capital, marketing, franchise fee, all expenses to get started, that the average franchisee does $1.5 million in revenue. Nice to know. That's in the FDD for quite a few senior home care brands. So besides leadership in the ownership group, besides the item 19 and understanding top line revenue capabilities, which brands have the best model? In other words, a model where they're doing something a little special. If it's a painting brand like That One Painter, who's taken the painting world by storm lately, what are they doing? Why is it important? Well, Cody Sanchez, she's involved in the brand. If you don't know Cody Sanchez, take a look. Big guru, private equity, smart lady that owns quite a few of her own businesses. Stephen Montgomery, the founder of Resi Brands, very talented guy, launched That One Painter himself as an owner. His father had painting equipment in the house. He learned to paint, created amazing in-house marketing, great support, what have you. But overall, what I'm getting at is it a niche? The riches are in the niches. Is it a niche, not just a niche that's growing, but is it a brand that's doing unique things within that niche, which That One Painter has reimagined the boring, unsexy business of painting? Pink's Window Services, also in their portfolio. So we talked about leadership and ownership, how that's important. We talked about the item 19, the numbers, that's important. We talked about the niche, or also within the niche, the value that the brand brings to you. Support is always crucial. What kind of support, training, very, very important. And the last piece, marketing. Marketing. What are they doing for you in marketing? And a lot of these brands we've discussed, whether it's Rolling, Suds, Voda, That One Painter, they are doing an excellent job of marketing for you and with you to make sure you get leads and you get business. So how do I know which of those brands are best for me? You work with me, a franchise consultant. Another popular question. Can't I just buy an existing business? Why do I need to invest in a franchise? Great question. Thanks for asking. The reality is you can buy an existing business, but when you get an existing business, you could then be stuck with a business you know nothing about. What happens if the leadership, the brand you bought, the existing business that's been there 25 years, what if they leave? What do you know about this business in the first place? Now, this is under the assumption that you actually get the business in the first place. There's a huge amount of competition for existing businesses because everybody thinks that's the easy way and appropriate way to do it. Not always, and I know people looking 5 years for an existing business. Time is money. Buying an existing business versus a franchise. A franchise has a proven business model. We're going to help you find the business that is perfect for you based on your situation. Are you going to be a full-time business owner? Are you going to be a part-time business owner? More on that in a little bit, but not all businesses are appropriate for the semi-absentee business model. But a franchise is going to be much safer. You get to build it on your own. You're following a model. You're following that blueprint, and you'll be able to build something, depending on how good you are. You already know the averages. I mentioned $1.5 million for revenue for quite a few senior home care brands. Doesn't mean you're going to do that in 6 months. Doesn't even mean you're going to do that in a year and a half. But at some point, that's the average, and most FDDs will disclose, is that in the second year that they do that? These are items and things you can figure out in the validation stage as you begin to speak to existing franchisees. But a franchise is going to be much safer. You can talk to a franchise broker like myself. We can get you in a franchise within a very short period of time. You're not waiting 5 years for the right business to hit you. I represent hundreds of brands, and there's opportunities in every category imaginable. My favorites are home services and senior home care. Do I need any experience in the business I'm going to buy? Lance, I'm a bald guy that doesn't know how to cut hair. Why would you show me a Great Clips hair salon? True story, a friend of mine who owned 19 Great Clips hair salons was bald and didn't know how to cut hair. He was actually mad when he first heard the idea of Great Clips. Why would you show me that? Had another gentleman that wanted to get into a fabulous business. Guess what? Air conditioning was what I suggested. What do you think he said to me? I don't know anything about air conditioning. That is not a problem. You can hire somebody that does. And they go through the training, and you're going to learn the business of the business. You're not going to be the technician. Read the book, The E-Myth. Fabulous book. You can see exactly what I'm talking about there. Another great question. Lance, can you send me a list of your favorite franchises? Let me tell you what I love about this question, and I think I'm being a little facetious. That's like somebody that's, let's say, a single guy that says, can you get me a list of the 10 most amazing supermodels and send that to me? Because that's who I want to date. Well, guess what? You have no idea if they're even interested in you, or if they're available, or if there's any chance of them even going on a first date with you. Well, getting a franchise is almost like dating. And the first date has a lot to do with you and I discussing why certain brands are better for you than others. And a lot of people are money motivated. A lot of people are time motivated. I don't want to spend as much time in the business. Can it be operated where I keep my day job and I hire a GM or a manager to run this business? So there's a lot of reasons I'm going to propose or select certain brands for you versus others. Budget clearly is one of them. So yeah, I'm going to give you some supermodels, but super business models that fit into your search criteria. Do they fit your budget? Are they actually available in your area? Remember what I said, they have to be available for that first date. Unless you plan on moving. I did have a guy recently tell me, I'll move for the best opportunity. And he moved. And he's doing a plumbing franchise. And he's finalizing between one of two great brands. Back to another big time question. Can I buy a franchise while I'm still working full-time at a job? The answer is absolutely. But it really depends on your skills more than ever. And it also depends on the franchise. There are some franchises that are a little more complicated and make it a little difficult. Not necessarily the brand, but the niche could make it a little more difficult, where you need to spend a lot more time in the beginning on this particular business. Thereby, it might not be the right choice for you. For example, Mosquito Squad was recently on the podcast. One of the many great authority brands. And Mosquito Squad is a business that I think is pretty easy, in which not heavily technical, not going to be terribly difficult if you're a good leader to find great people to run the shift and service the customers and provide excellent customer service, not heavily technical, and then it's hard to train. So that could be a fantastic brand for you to be a part-time owner if you have somebody, again, running the day-to-day for you. Because at the end of the day, it's okay to start slow and finish strong. But the reality is, if you don't get out of the blocks because you don't have an appropriate team, it's not going to do you any good. Lance, I don't want to buy a job. I've heard of so many people that get into a business or a franchise and they are stuck in that business. Well, the reality is that's totally up to you. So let's talk real life examples. A lot of times technicians, someone that's an air conditioning tech, someone that's a plumber, decides, I can't stand my boss. I want to do my own thing. So this plumber starts his own plumbing company. He's a technician. Again, read the book, The E-Myth. He's a technician. He doesn't know about managing people necessarily. He certainly doesn't know about being an entrepreneur and a visionary. So those are muscles that he or she has not flexed as of yet. So the reality is, as a technician, what is his or her comfort level? They might be excellent with customer service and they might be an excellent plumber. But there's a point where maybe they won't hire, or they'll stop hiring because they get frustrated because they're turning over people. Well, they can't see the forest through the trees sometimes. New entrepreneurs suffer from this, being blinded. What happens is they get stuck in the business. Instead of working on the business, they're stuck working in the business. And essentially, they're buying a job. However, that terminology is not a bad thing for quite a few people, because that plumber, as a technician in a franchise system, somebody else help them with marketing and systems and certain things. You have a lot of collaboration with successful franchisees. What ends up happening is that plumber, I bet you, will make a lot more than they ever made before and have a lot more freedom and peace of mind. They might not be creating an 8-figure plumbing business because they're not scaling appropriately, which we'll get to soon, but they're still having an incredible life and lifestyle by being their own boss. A huge topic seems to be everywhere is how do I build a big business? How do I scale something to 7, 8, or even 9 figures? Well, the reality is the secret to scale is not a secret. You need qualified people and you need your leadership. Well, this all begins with you in the first place. Qualified people, that is you. I've coached people over the years because I've owned franchises for almost 30 years. The reality is I've heard people tell me for years, I can't seem to find great people. And I tell people, you have a mirror? You have a mirror? Great. Why don't you look at that mirror? Because the reality is it's probably going to be your fault. Of course it's going to be your fault. Whose fault is it? You don't have a boss. It's you. Maybe it's the culture you're building. Maybe you're not offering enough money. Do you know money is not the number one reason that you can't actually retain people? Because some people can hire, but then they can never retain these people. Well, that's a whole other story because the reality is that is absolutely you. There are markets that are harder to attract people. Maybe there's just not enough people. So the reality is once you get past that and you figure it out, again, it's like a muscle. If you've never flexed it before, it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. You're going to be sore. You're going to make mistakes. And the reality is, just like being sore from a workout, you're not going to want to get out of bed. It's the same bad feeling, but you get over that. It's like riding a bike, and once you've done it and your elbows healed, your knees that you skinned up healed, you're going to be tougher for it, and you're going to understand how to go about hiring. So selecting the right people and growing that way and your leadership. I'll give you an example. When I was with Krispy Kreme, I jumped in, and before you knew it, we were going to doing over $25 million a year. We had 2 states. We had Nevada and Utah. And my partner, he invited me into the business after he had already opened his first location. And I was there because I had the expertise in operations, and I realized there just weren't the right people there. So I got rid of as many people as I needed to, cut it back. It's like a house. Like, you know, somebody was hoarding and has all this junk in there. Well, the sad thing about people, there is a sad thing about people. A beautiful flower cannot grow in a garden full of weeds. So I hate to tell you, but this is reality. There are people to me that are like weeds. You need to get rid of them. You need to pluck them out and get rid of them. So these beautiful people, these flowers, can grow in this garden known as your business. And that is a reality, is that it's all about your people. You might have also heard, think of the business as a bus. Put the right people on the bus in the right seats and then move the bus. If you have the wrong people in the wrong seats, stop the bus, throw off the people that don't belong, put the right people in place and move. So the key to scale, my uncle, I was out of college in 88. I know I'm old. 89, 88, 89, I was working on Wall Street. It was the end of 89. My uncle calls me. I join him with a TGI Fridays franchise. He told me he wanted to build $1 billion business. We got to over 200 million. Yes, $200 million by like 95, 96. Probably about 450 million these days. And here's how we scaled. We built a lot of new locations, but we acquired existing locations. Now, remember we talked about buying existing businesses earlier? Not exactly the same thing. If you're a first-time business owner, you've never owned a business before, you know that law of attraction? A lot of people have heard of the law of attraction. When you own a business, my friend that owned Great Clips, he bought one Great Clips, opened one. As soon as he bought one, Great Clips called him and said, we have an underperforming franchisee that would like to sell 2 poor performing locations. You'll get a nice discount. Would you like to buy those? He did. That was store 2 and 3 for him. He built some new stores, got some other crappy stores. Before you knew it, years later, he's got 19 locations. It's exactly how my uncle did it with TGI Fridays. There were some crappy ones we got as a discount, and then there were others that we built new. There are plenty of friends that I know that do the exact same thing. My friend Michael, Capriati's sandwich shop, bought a couple stores in Indiana recently. Why? Because the franchisee's retiring. He said, Michael, I heard you're always looking. Check out my P&Ls. I think Michael made an offer the same day or the next day. So building a big business and scaling is all about investing capital in new locations. But if you can do that at that point, at that stage, again, law of attraction, these things come to you when you're already a business owner. People come to you and say, would you like this? Would you like to buy this? Because they know you have the capability and the wherewithal and the foundation to be able to handle it. Now, the really fun part, I mentioned or hinted that I'm going to tell you about brands. I mentioned in the supermodel example earlier, in that supermodel example, this sort of applies. Not all of these brands that I talk about are going to be available in your area. Not all these brands are suitable for you. There's my disclaimer. The brands I'm going to mention are brands that I love. Remember, I talked about leadership, ownership, the validation of the franchisees that they're happy, the numbers, the support, the marketing, all of those factors. These are brands that I love for all of those reasons. There's quite a few, but let's talk about Rolling Suds, great power washing brand, a lot of commercial business, unique. I call it the Robert Downey Jr. of power washers. This isn't a power washer you're going to get at Lowe's or Home Depot. Very special, amazing marketing. Voda, restoration and cleaning. Restoration business is amazing. It's practically recession-proof. It's also a cleaning component to this business. Phenomenal business, amazing team, very focused, great marketing. Another brand to look at. Top Rail Fence. A young guy, barely 29, came to me. Was looking at a franchise that I didn't particularly care for, and it was a little too new. I said, why are you looking at that? Take a look at Top Rail Fence. Fence and rail, very unique niche. I think this is a great one for you. Jeff Duden, the Duden family, experienced operators, everything you need in that team. Zoom Drain, very specialized. Not just a plumber that changes the toilet handle or the flusher valve. These are good, big ticket items and tends to be B2B. Plumbers are hiring Zoom Drain to get deep in the drain so you can figure out what's going on way down yonder. And everybody knows that when it comes to plumbing, nobody wants anything to back up. So they're going to get deep in the septic system, sewer, what have you. The Tox. By the way, now's a perfect break to tell you what I got going on for 2025. The Tox was just featured on my brand new show, Franchise Road Trip. Franchise Road Trip is my version kind of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, although it's not just about restaurants like Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. It's just about franchises for sure. But I go and give you an up-close sort of day in the life of what it's like. Courtney Yeager, founder of The Tox, amazing, great episode, unique. It's a lymphatic massage brand. Courtney invested her own money, her and her husband's money, in I think it was 12 locations. They did 12 locations before they started franchising. Very unique. A lot of people will create one, do a great job of it. That's their model, and they launch it across the country. 12 she did. So the Tox, Franchise Road Trip, catch that on YouTube. The other thing I wanted to share with you today, besides this podcast you're listening to, Ion Franchising, every Wednesday now, I have an episode of Franchise Envy. And Franchise Envy is my conversation with franchisees that are successful and happy. And it's really just a big party to hear how these people did it. Everything from how much money did they make to why this particular franchise. So for those of you that are interested in business ownership, it's a perfect show for you. So every week on Wednesdays, this podcast you're listening to is, of course, every week on Fridays. Let's talk about home helpers. That's also going to be featured coming up on the show, Franchise Road Trip. Home Helpers is a senior home care brand. Top franchisee, I think, did $26 million last year. But big numbers there. A good buddy of mine I got him into Home Helpers. He was in tech sales, and he got into Home Helpers. And Home Helpers only allows you, they have big integrity. They only want you to buy one and see how you do. And my friend was such a high performer that he was able to, because of his amazing performance, get into a second location at about the 6-month mark. Shh, don't tell anybody. They're not supposed to do that. But he also won an award in his first year that no first-year franchisee ever won. It's like 300 franchisees, big brand, Home Helpers. Citywide Facility Solutions. I also, on an upcoming episode of Franchise Envy, which will air on YouTube, I interviewed a retired Navy SEAL, young guy, amazing guy, citywide. He'll probably do $20 million this year. Facility Solutions. You're managing a building for somebody. Janitorial service, could be pest control, could be snow removal if that's required in your area. I'm in Vegas, doesn't snow that much here, maybe once a year for about a minute. With Citywide, HVAC, repair, maintenance, plumbing, I already mentioned janitorial services, anything to manage a building. They even do national accounts for you. Pretty incredible. Sign World. I did quite a few Sign World deals this year. Interestingly enough, not a franchise. It's just their methodology and their preference. It's not a franchise. So what that does is, if you think McDonald's, a rigorous franchise, the uniforms, the logo has to be a McDonald's logo, has to be a McDonald's. Vendors, the sesame seed bun better be the same. The meat better be the same. Special sauce is going to be the special sauce, whether you're in Russia or the United States. Franchises are all about exercising control to make sure it's a consistent product and result. Sign World chose not to use the Sign World name, but you're going to get the system. You don't pay an ongoing royalty. There's an annual renewal fee that's minimal, $2,200, I think, last I checked. And they will still give you all the know-how and follow-up and marketing. And a lot of these things are optional. You don't necessarily have to do everything because it is not a franchise. The highest volume guy there did 38 million last year. 38 million. And he sells a lot of trade show booths and things like that. There's a lot of happy franchisees, great lifestyle brand where husbands and wives or families can be involved. They even have a virtual model. Can you imagine a virtual franchise? Got a lot of traction on TikTok with one of the videos. They were talking about virtual franchises. And the reality is you don't even need any employees with Sign World. You can farm all the services out, just do business development, bring in the sales and the proposals, and have your other friends at Sign World do the fulfillment, whether it's electronic signs or buses being wrapped or what have you. Very unique brand. Weight loss. Last I checked, 74% of America could use some, weight loss. Bottom line is that's the reality, and Medi Weight Loss is amazing. It's been around 18 months. Audix, a big private equity firm that specializes in healthcare, Audix bought them about a year and a half ago. And I think it's an amazing brand. I can tell you that $350,000 investment, it's only open 32 hours a week. You get some professionals, either a CNA or a nurse practitioner, actually, in most states to run it. And they have an amazing leadership team, amazing systems, marketing. You're going to cash flow more than likely within 6 months. Don't quote me on that. That's up to you. Great, great opportunity. Big numbers. I know people netting $400,000 a year in Medi Weight Loss. I have a few notes. I'm just going to run through some things for you. Some of my favorite groups, Authority Brands. Authority Brands owns a lot of different franchises. Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, I love. 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning. Home Watch Caregivers. Dry Medic, to name a few. Those are some great brands for Authority Brands, and they have others. Resi Brands, I mentioned earlier. Stephen Montgomery. That one, Painter, Pinks. They have Action Exteriors. Neighborly, I think, is still the biggest. Neighborly's got like 17 brands or so. Mr. Electric, just did a Mr. Electric deal. A lady invested in that. Glass Doctor, they have an auto division for auto glass that competes with the likes of Safelite, which is a big dog in the industry. They also do flat glass like bathroom glass and what have you. Precision Garage Doors, practically sold out. Amazing garage door brand. Last I checked, they do $4 million a year average. Real Property Management. I have a lady that's finalizing that deal. But Neighborly's got a lot of great brands also. Horsepower Brands. Josh, the chairman of the board of Horsepower, was just on the podcast. Mighty Dog Roofing, Stand Strong Fencing, Gatsby Glass, to name a few, are some amazing ones. I mentioned Top Rail Fence earlier. Stand Strong is another fantastic brand. I always tell people compare and contrast. The last group I'll mention today, Belfour. I went to go see Sheldon and Rusty in Ann Arbor, Michigan last year. And, that's part of my job as a consultant, is to get out there and mix and mingle. So I get to really do my homework to be able to present the brands that have the best people and best performance, and brands that I think you have the best shot at not only being happy, because look, I say if you didn't perform well at a franchise, the worst thing that happens is it's below your expectations. Not that you go bankrupt or anything severe like that, but maybe it didn't make you as much money. Maybe it's because you didn't work as hard as you should have in this business, or life changes, because life does change, right? Belfour Franchise Group. Belfour, the name comes from Belfour Commercial and Restoration. So Belfour Restoration is the largest commercial restoration brand in the U.S. I was at the Belfour office right before Hurricane Milton hit Florida, and we were told they had 3,500 employees, all that have a vehicle, a corporate card, a hotel room, and 3,500 people on the ground in Florida waiting to help their clientele. Crazy. Billions of dollars a year. Belfour is the largest commercial restoration brand in the world, in many, many countries, and they have a franchise division. Well, wouldn't you want to be part of a group that has that balance sheet, that backing, that know-how? So Belfour has a lot of great brands. Hoods is one of their oldest brands. And if you were ever in the restaurant business, those hoods that are above fryers or cooking stations, required by law to get those cleaned every 3 months, 6 months, depending on how busy the restaurant is. When I was in the restaurant business, had to get those cleaned in the middle of the night. Great business, compliance business, so it's required by fire code. Blue Kangaroo Packouts. Blue Kangaroo Packouts in the restoration business. When you have to pack up or pack out a house due to either a disaster or maybe a water heater exploded, and you have to evacuate a couple of rooms or a room, that pack out process is done by a brand like Blue Kangaroo Packouts. Hot brand, doing incredibly well with Belfour. And the Patch Boys, that was one of their brands, still is one of their brands, the Patch Boys. I remember I was at my mom's house in Florida, and I was coming around the corner and I fell, and either my butt or my elbow hit the wall and dented it. Well, who's going to fix that? The Patch Boys just fixes drywall. Painters don't necessarily fix all that today. It's a specialist like the Patch Boys. So that is a sampling of all kinds of brands for you to take a look at for 2025. Quite a few of them are in the home service space. I have plenty in every category, but those are some that just float to the top regularly for me. I probably have at least 100 brands that are my favorites. And I want to wish everybody a happy new year. I don't care what Larry David said. I did it again. Thank you for watching. And don't forget, my free assessment is your first step. Feel free to do that, and it helps me understand, based on your mindset, skill set, and life experiences, what brands could be best for you. We're obviously going to have a deep phone call, and we're going to discuss you and understand what can be best for you as well. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.